7 spine-chilling disappearances exposed. Terrifying secrets of the haunted and unexplained. In the quiet suburb of Maplewood, shadows creep under the cover of night, whispering dark secrets. Residents hastily lock their doors at dusk, hearts pounding as they recall every chilling tale. 7 families have vanished without a trace, leaving behind only echoes of fear and disillusionment. Children laugh as they play in the streets, blissfully unaware that one of them may be next. Just step outside, the police had said. It's safe. But Jenna knew better. She'd seen the panic behind their eyes. Jenna gripped the familiar spatula, each slice of sizzling grease drumming against her nerves. The diner buzzed with disjointed conversations, a garbled mix of fear and normalcy. She prepared another batch of fries while her mind raced, frantic whispers creeping into her thoughts. They were just gone, she'd overheard one customer say. Disappeared from their homes. Felt like the air thickened each time she thought of it. Her son, Max, was 10 and too trusting for his own good. The weight of her sleepless nights and worry pressed down like a heavy blanket. When she finally stumbled home late that night, the streets were shrouded in darkness. Each flickering street lamp cast eerie shapes that felt alive, creeping closer to her with malevolent intent. Her heart thundered, a relentless beat in her chest. She shook her head, trying to banish the vile thoughts. Nothing will happen, she whispered under her breath, a desperate mantra. But an unsettling chill followed her, tightening around her throat like a noose. Before she could shake the sensation, a scrap of paper caught her eye. Jenna froze, her heartbeat echoing loud in her ears as she approached the mailbox. Inside, nestled among the bills, lay an anonymous note. You and Max are next. Her breathing quickened, panic clawing at her insides. How did they know? Helplessness swept over her as she pictured every smiley face in the neighborhood watching her and her son, concealing secrets darker than midnight. Days turned into nights filled with dread. The authorities didn't take her seriously, they dismissed her as paranoid. A single mother overwhelmed by fear. But she wasn't crazy. The dread wouldn't leave her alone. Her instincts screamed that something was wrong, and she needed to uncover the truth behind those perfect families. Each sleepless hour was spent digging deeper into police reports and browsing old newspaper clippings. What she found churned in her stomach like spoiled milk. So many people disappearing quietly in the night were somehow connected by a thick thread of lies woven around the fabric of their suburb. When school ended abruptly with a heart-stopping call, Max is missing, Jenna's world shattered. The streets were no longer familiar. They turned into a twisted labyrinth of shadows that watched her every frantic move. Each house, once a refuge, felt like a prison. Cold fear wrapped her in its tight grip as she tore down the streets, desperation igniting her every step. Why had she trusted them? With tears streaming down her cheeks, she ran toward home, determined to fight for her son. But the very neighbors she once trusted swirled in the corners of her mind like a nightmare refusing to fade. She turned onto a side street, an innocuous turn, but this time, it felt sinister. A figure emerged from the darkness, a smile twisting on their face, knowing far too much. She froze, her heart crashing against her ribs. The adrenaline coursing through her veins promised that the true horror was only just beginning. Jenna stood paralyzed in the shadows, frozen as the figure drifted closer, their smile growing wider. The darkness seemed to pulse, alive with secrets ready to explode. She blinked, trying to make sense of the nightmare unfolding before her eyes. Was this a friend? A foe? Looking for someone? The figure called out, voice smooth yet dripping with malice. Jenna's instincts kicked in. She turned on her heel, heart racing. But the figure laughed softly, a sound that danced mockingly around her. She felt it clawing at the edges of her mind, shooting panic through her veins. Max! She screamed, the name tumbling from her lips like a desperate prayer. Where is he? The figure strolled casually, dark clothing blending seamlessly into the night. Oh, he is doing just fine. For now, they replied, amusement lacing their tone. Each word fell heavy like stones in the pit of her stomach. Jenna pressed forward, the urge to flee clashing with her need to confront whatever nightmare this person represented. "Who are you?" she demanded, voice shaking despite her fierce resolve. The figure paused, as if considering how much to share. They all thought they were safe. They continued, pacing slowly, weaving between the shadows like a ghost. But safety is an illusion, a cruel trick to lull you into a false sense of security. Every fiber of Jenna's being screamed to escape, yet fear froze her feet to the ground. For a split second, she felt a flicker of hope that someone was there to help her. But their eyes glinted with a predatory intensity, and the realization sunk in. This was not a rescue, it was a threat. "Who are you?" she pressed again, voice barely a whisper now, trembling under the weight of dread. "I'm simply a messenger," the figure replied, leaning closer, their breath cold against her skin. "The neighborhood has a secret, Jenna. A sweet little game the families play. You don't want to know what happens to the ones who refuse to follow the rules. I'm just here to welcome you, to warn you." The air turned thick, suffocating. Jenna could see it now, a glimmer of something darker, hidden behind the familiar faces of her neighbors. Those warm smiles were masks hiding cold, sharp truths. Suddenly, a flash of movement pulled her gaze away, a glint in the distance. Instinctively, she turned towards it, heart racing. "Max!" she shouted again, desperate. But the figure's laughter echoed, drowning out her voice. "You'll have to move quicker, my dear," they taunted, pointing into the shadows where her son had last been. "It's almost too late." Fueled by fear, Jenna dashed down the street, the figure's sly chuckle lingering behind her like a taunt. She no longer felt the safety of familiarity. Every house felt like a looming specter, its windows watching with empty eyes. She raced to the one house she hadn't dared to check, the Evans. They had always seemed just a bit off to her. Their shadows danced in the window like they were preparing for something terrible as she approached. Rage blossomed within her. She pounded on the door, breath ragged, nails digging into the wood. "Let him go," she shouted, every word dripping with desperation. Silence enveloped her, thick and suffocating. Then, it creaked open, a sliver of dim light spilling out. Mrs. Evans stood there, a serene smile plastered across her face. "Jenna," she said, her voice sugar-coated but hollow. "Why don't you come inside? We've been waiting for you." Jenna's world spiraled, dread pooling in the pit of her stomach as the door swung wider, welcoming her into the dark secrets of Maplewood. She hesitated, her instincts screaming, yet the chilling realization hit her like ice water. What had she truly awakened? The door hovered at the edge of her choice, but Jenna knew some doors must never be opened. As she took a step back, the shadows settled around her, whispering warnings she might not survive to hear. But just as she turned to flee, the windows around the house lit up with ghostly figures of children laughing, their faces too distorted, their eyes empty. It was a chilling invitation she couldn't ignore, and she felt the pull toward them, a betraying urge to follow. Would she be able to save Max in time? Or would Maplewood claim yet another victim? Jenna's breath caught in her throat as the distorted laughter of the children echoed around her. It was a sound that burrowed into her ears, twisting her gut with dread. "No," she thought, shaking her head. "This wasn't right. Get away from me," she yelled, shoving past Mrs. Evans, who simply tilted her head, that inhuman smile plastered on her pale face. Jenna stumbled into the hallway, a dim and narrow path that felt more like a coffin than a home. The walls seemed to close in on her as shadows stretched and rippled like living things, observing her every move. "Max!" she cried out again, pushing through the thick air. The house felt wrong. It creaked and groaned as if it were alive, and every step echoed in the silence, amplifying her panic. Peeking into the first room, she saw nothing but darkness. Her pulse raced. Should she keep going or turn back? "Jenna," came a soft voice, a whisper threaded with fear. It was Max. Her heart soared and plummeted in the same instant, the sound guiding her deeper into the labyrinth of the Evans home. "Max, I'm coming," she shouted, her voice echoing and bouncing off the walls. As she rounded a corner, her foot caught on something warm and soft. She recoiled in horror to find what looked like an old, tattered teddy bear. Its button eyes glinted like dark secrets, and a chill crawled up her spine. Before she could collect herself, a loud bang reverberated through the house, making her jump. "Come out!" she yelled. Fury mingled with fear. "Where's my son?" The air thickened, drawing her in like a noose. A door at the end of the hall stood slightly ajar. Jenna dared to look inside. The room was filled with dim light, a glow she couldn't quite identify. "Jenna," the voice came again, muffled but pleading. She pushed the door wide open, and what she saw sent her heart racing. A small circle of children stood, their backs turned to her. They were chanting in unison, words she couldn't make out. The glow intensified, revealing a circle of brightly lit drawings on the floor, sickly, colorful images depicting families, homes, and something much darker lurking behind them. "Max!" she screamed, taking a step forward. The moment she did, the children whirled around. Their faces, once familiar and innocent, were twisted, mouths stretched into unnatural grins. Eyes devoid of life stared back at her, empty and cold. "Join us, Jenna," they whispered in horrible unison tones. "You're one of us now. We've all been waiting." The chill settled deep within her. She stumbled back, her hand brushing against the door frame like a lifeline. Panic surged through her, urging her to flee, but horror rooted her to the spot. Suddenly, another voice cut through the darkness. It was Max. "Help me, Mom!" The desperation clawed at her heart, echoing through the chaos. "Max!" she shouted, her voice breaking. "Where are you?" One of the children stepped forward, their fingers outstretched. "Come play, Jenna. We can all be together forever." The shadows twisted, morphing into dark fingers, reaching, grabbing. Jenna felt them tugging at her, pulling her toward the ghastly gathering. "No!" she cried out, pulling away. But the grip was unreal, icy cold, draining her strength. Just as she thought she would be dragged into that waking nightmare, the sound of a door crashing opened from behind. An unfamiliar voice shouted, "What is happening in here?" Jenna turned, eyes wide with shock. A figure charged into the room, silhouetted against the doorway. A surge of hope flickered in the pit of her stomach. "Mom!" Max's voice rang out again, searching. The apparition stepped forward, and in that moment, Jenna realized she could still escape, but could she draw Max back with her? Yet as she reached for him, the children laughed in a dissonant harmony, and Jenna knew whatever was happening in Maplewood was far worse than she could ever have imagined. Was this a chance for freedom, or the beginning of her own new nightmare entangled in the darkness? As shadows flickered, Jenna's worst fears began to materialize. Would she find Max, or would the truth seal her fate? The figure in the doorway stepped into the room, allowing the dim light to cast shadows that writhed against the walls. Jenna squinted, trying to make out the features of her savior. It was a man tall, with a rugged look that belied a fierce determination in his eyes. He held a flashlight, its beam cutting through the oppressive darkness like a knife. "Get back!" he shouted, aiming the light at the children. Their laughter transformed into snarls, their faces swirling into grotesque masks of rage and confusion. They recoiled, as if the light burned their flesh. Jenna, still rooted in terror, felt a flicker of strength in her chest. The urgency to escape surged anew. "Mom! Help!" Max cried out again, his voice cracking, echoing off the walls. Panic rattled her as she turned toward the familiar voice. "Max!" she screeched, dodging the outstretched hands of the children who seethed and writhed in protest. "Come on," the man urged, pointing toward the exit. "We have to leave now." Jenna's heart raced as she darted toward Max. The children shrieked, their voices strangled and distorted, intertwining with her emotions, tugging at her mind. "Forever, join us." They didn't just want her. They wanted to consume her. But the shadows pulsated, swirling around her like a storm, dragging her nearer to the center of the dread-filled room. With her last ounce of freedom, she lunged forward, gripping Max's wrist just as he emerged from the hallway, his little face smeared with tears and sunshine-colored dust. "Come on," she yelled, and together they dashed for the door, the man trailing behind them while the children lunged, snapping at their heels as they burst into the hallway. Jenna glanced back. The children had halted, their twisted forms frozen like vines grasping the air, helpless at the threshold of the circle. Their laughter faded into a chilling silence. Jenna could feel their hunger fill the space, a vacuum of lost innocence that wanted to pull them back. "Is it safe?" Max asked, his voice trembling. Jenna's heart ached at the fear etched across his face. "Not yet," she gasped, panic fueling her steps down the corridor. The house felt like it was shifting, walls vibrating as they ran, the layout warping and morphing in response to their flight. The echo of footsteps rose behind them as the man shouted back, "We have to move faster." Jenna couldn't keep focusing on something that seemed to fold in on itself. The light flickered, straining against the encroaching darkness. She felt it crawling over her skin, seep through the cracks in her resolve. Just as they rounded another corner, the man skidded to a halt, pulse racing as he pointed to a heavy wooden door nestled in the wall. "In there. There's a way out. Don't stop," Jenna cried, but it was too late. Dark shapes slithered toward them, shapes that writhed and twisted into monstrous forms, eyes blazing with an unholy hunger. The children's faces morphed again, their soft, pleading features replaced with something ancient, something intrinsically evil. "Mom!" Max screamed, his small fingers gripping her hand too tightly. "Push!" the man roared, shoving Jenna towards the door. She could feel the coldness closing in, wrapping tighter around her throat. She glared at the man, uncertainty flooding her mind. "What if it's a trap?" she gasped, panic gripping her voice. He wasn't listening. He flung open the door just as the shadows surged around them, and Jenna realized the room beyond glowed eerily. It was wrong, beckoning with curiosity wrapped in fear. "Go!" he shouted as the children lunged. With her heart pounding in her ears like thunder, Jenna grabbed Max and barreled through the door. As they tumbled inside, the thick air closed behind them like a heavy curtain. She glanced back, catching the last glimpse of the hallway, the shadows frozen in fury, anguish radiating from their eerie forms. Shuttered light engulfed them, and suddenly, they were surrounded by garish images, walls painted with faces of children laughing, jeering, and whispering tales hidden in nightmares. A slow realization crept up Jenna's spine, her head swimming in disbelief. This was no escape. "Where are we?" she gasped, heart heavy with dread. The man's face was pale, jaw set firm. "We've only traded one prison for another." His voice trembled, knowing there was no sanctuary here, only deeper darkness. As she scanned the room, Max clutched her hand tighter, his innocent eyes wide with terror, filled with uncertainty. Jenna realized they stood at the brink of another game, deeper than before, as the whispers crescendoed around them. But the evil lurking in Maplewood had not waned. It had only twisted into something far worse. What awaited them in this new nightmare? Mom Max's eye hung heavy in the air, as she braced for the world to shift around them once more. Was there any way out of this hell? Or was it too late? The walls throbbed with hidden laughter, echoing like a long-forgotten memory. Jenna's throat felt tight. Her breath came in shallow gasps. "What do we do now?" she whispered, scouring the room for any semblance of hope. The man took a step back, his flashlight illuminating the bizarre tableau. Children's faces, painted in garish colors, smiled wickedly from the walls. Every smile seemed twisted, as if mocking their plight. Beneath the vibrant paint, shadows flickered, crawling across the surface as if trying to leap free. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice as if afraid the walls might hear them. "This place, it feeds off fear. We need to remain calm." "Calm?" Jenna barked. "How can we stay calm? We were just chased by the children," he interrupted sharply, urgency creeping into his voice. "They're not what they seem. We can't let them find out we're scared." Max squeezed Jenna's hand tighter, his small body trembling. "What do they want?" he asked, eyes wide. "Innocent. Power," the man said. "Control. They want to keep us here forever. As Jenna scanned the room, she felt the air grow colder. Shadows whispered at the edges of her consciousness, and the chant of "Join us" began faintly, rising incrementally like a tide. They craved warmth, humanity, and worst of all, they craved despair. "Look there," the man said suddenly, pointing toward a door that looked out of place. It was small, almost child-sized, adorned with peeling stickers and scribbled messages. "We might be able to get out through that. But it leads to where?" Jenna shot back, fear mingling with a desperate need for escape. "Only one way to find out," he replied, steeling himself. He moved toward the door, illuminating it with the flickering beam of his flashlight. As he reached for the handle, the shadows thickened, swirling around him like a dark mist. "No!" Jenna cried, yanking Max back. But it was too late. The man jerked the door open, revealing not a corridor but a darkened tunnel, pulsating with a foul breath of cold air. It beckoned, an invitation tinged with danger. "Go!" he yelled over his shoulder, but Jenna hesitated. This was the heart of fear, the very essence that had twisted them here. "Mom!" Max urged, pulling at her arm. The shadows echoed his name, a mocking blend of innocence and malice. "Please!" Jenna felt the pull of that darkness, the weight of it pressing against her chest. "We can't split up." Her voice echoed, filled with a mother's instinct to protect. But the man's face reflected back the fear that churned within her. "Together. We need to stay together." Just then, laughter erupted from the other side of the walls. The children's mocking voices filled the air again. "Yes. Join us. Forever." Their voices forged a symphony of imminent dread, and Jenna's heart sank. "Please, Jenna," the man urged. "If we hesitate, they'll ensnare us in this place forever. We must decide now." Against the backdrop of relentless laughter, she felt the cold sweat drip down her spine. It was a choice fraught with uncertainty. "Okay." A whisper almost lost to the pressing shadows. "Together." In one swift movement, she grabbed Max's hand as they plunged into the tunnel, darkness swallowing them whole. The echoes of their footsteps against damp stone reverberated in the cramped space, each step a reminder of their fragile hold on reality. The air thickened with foreboding, the tunnel stretched unnaturally long, as if mocking their effort. And behind them, Jenna could feel it, the pervasive weight of hunger, relentless and ravenous, clawing through the walls, seeking to trap them and feed on their fears. "Mom, I feel them," Max said, his voice trembling. Suddenly, a flicker of warmth sparked inside Jenna, and she turned to Max. "We'll be okay. Just hold tight to me." But deep down, dread coiled in her gut. Was this tunnel leading them to freedom, or deeper into the abyss? As they pressed on, whispers surged around them, twisting through the air, echoing insults and despair. The weight of fear closed in. Just then, the tunnel shuddered violently, and the ground beneath them trembled, sending tremors rippling through Jenna's legs. They were not alone. The shadows stirred, and in the distance, muffled cries shattered the darkness, rising to a fever pitch. Something was coming, and it was hungry. "What now?" Max whimpered, eyes wide and frightened. Jenna's heart raced with an instinctual panic as she clutched him tighter. "I don't know," she gasped, her voice quaking. "But we can't stop, we have to keep moving towards the light." Every instinct screamed for her to turn back, but something at the end of the tunnel glimmered. What awaited them in that light? And would they reach it in time, or was the darkness about to claim another victim? The darkness thickened as Jenna and Max pressed forward, the chill in the air wrapping around them like a suffocating veil. The dim light flickered weakly ahead, teasing them, hinting at hope yet heavy with dread. Each step felt like an eternity, the ground beneath their feet quaking ominously, as if warning them not to proceed. "Mom, it's too dark." Max's voice trembled, tears glistening in his wide eyes. The fear radiating from him weighed on Jenna, tightening her chest with every echo of their movements, every small sound amplified in the oppressive silence surrounding them. "I know, sweetheart," she whispered, brushing a hand over his head. "But we'll be okay. Just keep moving, please." The tunnel felt alive, full of pulsating shadows that reached for them, flickering and vanishing like bad dreams. The walls weren't just stone now. The grotesque faces of the painted children seemed to morph, twisting and stretching as they approached. Their twisted grins deepened in the faint light, the laughter transforming into a chilling melody that hung in the air. Then, without warning, the tunnel narrowed. Jenna felt panic clawing at her throat. "Go faster," she urged, tugging Max forward. But their pace faltered as the oppressive gloom pressed against them, threatening to swallow them whole. The cries, now clearer, echoed mournfully through the dark, a cacophony of lost voices, pleading to be saved, to escape. Jenna felt each one pierce through her, urgency mounting within her every heartbeat. "Max, we can't listen to them," she shouted, trying to drown out the haunting sounds. "We just need to make it to the light." With each step closer to that flicker, the air turned rancid and stale. Her stomach twisted in revulsion. "What is this place?" she gasped, but no answer came, only the groans of the shadows that writhed around them, growing more aggressive. "Mom!" Max cried out, pointing ahead. "What's that?" The flickering light transformed into a blinding beacon, illuminating a doorway at the end of the tunnel, wide open and beckoning. "Is this a way out?" Part of Jenna wished to run, but the other half trembled at what might lie just beyond. "Stay close," she warned as she propelled them toward the light, but just as they reached the threshold, something shimmery and indistinct lunged out, snatching at Max's sleeve. "Max!" Jenna screamed, yanking him back just in time, her heart leaping to her throat. A shadow swarmed around them, suffocating and heavy, thick with the scent of fear. "Let us go. Now," she urged, pushing him in front and bolting toward the door. It loomed larger now, emanating a warmth that felt so inviting yet erased all reason. But a piercing shriek cut the air, halting them. Jenna froze, heavy breaths mingling with the shadow's growls. In that moment, she saw them figures emerging from the depths, their childlike forms camouflaged in the darkness, limbs equating disorientation and menace. Their eyes glimmered like brittle glass, empty and unfathomable. "Join us," they chorused in a sing-song chant, underscoring each word with a terrifying resonance. The sound twisted within her, crawling under her skin, begging her to abandon her rational thoughts. Jenna felt the icy grip of terror coil into a tight knot. "Move!" she shouted, thrusting Max forward. They barreled through the door, overshooting their exit into a cavernous room filled with a surreal glow. But as they stumbled through, the door slammed shut behind them with a deafening thud, sealing the darkness away, or trapping them there forever. The light unveiled a shocking sight: walls lined with eerie portraits, each one a window into a chilling past, faces twisted in expressions of horror and sorrow. The air felt electric, tinged with unspoken secrets, a wrongness that pressed against their very souls. "Where are we?" Max whispered between shaky breaths. Jenna turned to him, heart pounding, realization washing over her. "I don't know, but we must find a way out." As they stood among remnants of despair, Jenna felt the shadows still lurking, just outside the glow. This new sanctuary offered no comfort, only the watchful eyes of the past. The whispers grew louder, reaching from the paintings, a collective sigh of anguish that echoed possibilities far more dreadful than those they just escaped. "What's gonna happen now?" Max asked, his innocence hanging in the air like a noose. Jenna glanced back at the door, sealed tight. The only sound was a low hum, almost like laughter, an invitation or a warning. As the portraits seemed to shift, eyeing them with dark intent, Jenna felt a chilling breath against her neck. The urge to flee surged within her, but there was no clear path back. What other horrors lurked in this place, and how could they possibly escape the fate of those painted faces? Panic clawed at Jenna's insides as she turned back to face the portraits again. The faces in the paintings seemed to shift, a subtle movement that sent shivers racing down her spine. It felt as if they were judging her, their hollow eyes boring into her soul. Every beat of her heart echoed in her ears, drowning out the oppressive silence that wrapped around them. "Mom, I don't like this place." Max's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "I know, honey. We'll get through this, Jenna replied, forcing a calm she didn't feel. She clutched Max's hand tighter, feeling his small fingers tremble against her palm. The air was thick with tension. Suddenly, the low hum grew louder, and laughter erupted, jagged and mocking, echoing off the walls. It wasn't just in her head. The portraits shimmered, their colors pulsating like a heartbeat, keeping time with the laughter that crept under her skin. Let us find a way out, Jenna insisted, eyes darting around the room. She felt the weight of their history hanging in the air, scented with dust and despair. Each painting held a grip of torment that wasn't ready to release them. They stumbled deeper into the room, the warmth of the light stretching thin with every step. The whispers grew into a chorus, overlapping voices of those trapped like them, weaving a tapestry of sorrow that tugged at Jenna's resolve. Max, stay close, she warned. But the further they ventured, the more erratic Max's movements became. He gazed longingly at a painting featuring a girl about his age, her eyes large and pleading. It seemed almost alive, pulling him in like a moth to a flame. Mom, look, she needs help, Max pointed, his voice breathless. No, Jenna snapped, dragging him back just as the girl's mouth twisted into a mocking smile, pure malice gleaming in her eyes. A wave of nausea hit Jenna, and she stumbled back, trying to shake off the sensation crawling along her skin. The laughter intensified, it grew louder, almost hysterical. Shadows twisted along the walls, wrapping themselves around the portraits, mingling with the light to create a grotesque dance that threatened to pull Jenna and Max into its depths. Mom, let us go now, Max yelled, his eyes wide with fear. They turned, looking for an exit amidst the chaos, hearts pounding as the oppressive atmosphere pressed around them. Jenna's breath quickened, her mind racing, searching for any sign of a way out. Just as they reached an archway leading to another room, a loud crash echoed behind them. The wall of portraits had shifted, revealing a narrow passage that seemed to pulse like a living entity. A fragment of movement caught Jenna's eye as a figure darted from one painting to the next, slipping between the spaces like smoke. Did you see that? Max gasped. Jenna nodded, gripping his arm. We can't stay here. We have to go. They rushed through the archway, the laughter now a sinister backdrop to their escape. But the walls narrowed in, almost as if they were being pursued. Shadows darted behind them, scraping against the stone with chilling anticipation. Jenna could feel their cold breath teasing at her heels. Don't look back, she urged, pushing forward. Fear propelled them, heartbeats synchronizing as they fled into the unknown. But just as Jenna thought they might find a brief respite, an unearthly wail pierced the air, a sound so deeply sorrowful it reverberated through them. It was a sound that begged for liberation, a warning that promised nothing good lay ahead. They stumbled into the next chamber, its shape distorted and hallucinatory. It pulsed with an ambient light while shadows danced hungrily along the walls. But before Jenna could process her surroundings, a cacophony of whispers flooded in. Join us, stay with us, Jenna recoiled, struggling to hold onto her sanity. But deep within, the temptation loomed heavy. The figures from the paintings loomed closer, their eyes pleading, and her heart raced. What is happening, Mom? Max's frantic whisper cut through the haze. Jenna looked down to see Max's expression drift from fear to something eerily serene. We have to stand strong, she pleaded, her own resolve quaking. He nodded. Yet his gaze was drawn to a swirling cloud of shadows forming in the center of the room, almost beckoning them closer. She could feel the pull, a magnetic force tugging, an invitation threaded with malice as they readied to push through the dizziness settling in. A low rumble rolled through, shaking the very foundation beneath them. And then, in an instant, one of the portraits tore free from the wall, a ghoulish figure sprinting toward them, a face that was both familiar and distorted, a grotesque echo of nightmares. Run! Jenna screamed, grabbing Max's hand and sprinting into the abyss that loomed ahead. But behind them, the cacophony of voices rose to a crescendo, drowning out her thoughts. What waited beyond was uncertain, but the pursuit was undeniable. The darkness of the place welcomed them into its deepest folds. Will we ever escape? Max gasped as they plunged into the void, the noise swallowing them whole. Only the looming question remained. What horrors awaited them in the tangled web of shadows? The darkness thickened around them, a living entity that pressed in closer with every frantic step. Jenna's heart thundered as she and Max barreled down the shadowy hallway, uncertainty gnawing at them like hungry ghosts. The air felt charged, tinged with an acrid smell that reminded her of burnt paper and loss. "Mom, it's getting colder," Max whispered, his voice quaking. Jenna squeezed his hand tighter, willing warmth into his small fingers. "We'll be okay. Just keep running." The shadows danced in her peripheral vision, flickers of movement that made her skin crawl. She could feel them, brushing against her, taunting her, whispering secrets of despair and dread. The laughter had receded but left behind a haunting echo that wormed into her ears, coiling tightly. They reached a doorway, its outline barely visible within the oppressive gloom. Jenna pushed it open, the old wood creaking ominously as if protesting their entrance. They stepped into a small room, barely illuminated by a single flickering bulb above. The light swung slightly, casting erratic shapes on the walls. Max's eyes widened as he took in the sight before them. A dusty table stood in the middle, littered with old, yellowed photographs and strange trinkets. Each item appeared charged with phantom energy, a warning of the echoes of past lives. But Jenna had no intention of lingering. "Let us keep moving," she urged. Yet, as if he heard her thoughts, the floorboards creaked ominously beneath them, and the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panic surged within her, and she turned frantically, searching for another exit. "Mom!" Max cried, his voice shrill. A whisper curled around them, intimate and sinister. "Stay, join us." The photographs began moving, their subjects writhing in silent screams, faces merging, shifting, morphing into grotesque caricatures. A cold sweat dripped down Jenna's back. She couldn't breathe. The air was thickening like a shroud, suffocating her. "No!" Jenna yelled, shaking her head as if to clear the nightmare unraveling before her. "We're not staying." She pounded her fists against the door, desperation fueling her strength, as the walls of the room began to tremble. The whisper grew louder, transforming into an agonizing wail that swallowed her whole. "Turn back, stay with us." With a sudden ferocity, Jenna slammed her shoulder against the door, feeling it give slightly. Adrenaline coursed through her veins. "Max, help me." He punched the door beside her, his small frame trembling with fright, and together they forced the door open, bursting forth into a new corridor that loomed before them like a serpentine beast. But the corridor twisted and turned, the walls shifting as if the house itself had a mind. Images flashed by, fleeting glimpses of people, faces twisted in horror, stretching hands that reached out in anguish. Each swift glance sent jolts of panic through Jenna's veins. They pressed on, but the cries of those lost haunted them relentlessly. Max stumbled, his breath hitching. "Mom, I don't like it here." "No, I know," Jenna replied, her tone steady but her heart racing. "Just hold on to my hand." As they moved deeper, Jenna could feel the pulse of the house. It was alive, breathing, and watching them. Suddenly, they came upon another door, locked tight, but the sound of sobbing floated through the cracks. A little girl's tear-choked voice broke the tense silence. "Help me, please." Jenna hesitated, dread coiling in her chest. What if it was another trap? Yet the sound tugged at her heart. "Max, let us wait, don't go," he pleaded, eyes wide with fear. But the door began to shake, as if something within had become aware of their presence. "Please, let me out." Now it was frenzied, filling the air with desperation. "Max, we have to go," Jenna hissed, torn between compassion and fear. She backed away, dragging her son with her. But the sobbing turned to shrieks, echoing off the walls, a cacophony of desperation that seemed to claw at their sanity. They turned to flee, but the corridor pulsed again, a shifting maze that jumbled their path. The laughter returned, sharp and malicious. Jenna's heart raced as the shadows flickered around them, morphing and twisting, teeming with the souls of the trapped. "Mom, what do we do?" Max cried, eyes glistening with terror. Jenna's breath caught. She scanned the corridor, eyes darting, searching for the way out. Beyond the shifting shadows, amidst the chaos, a faint light flickered an exit or another trap. "Hold tight," she screamed, racing toward the light, the oppressive laughter swelling behind them, clawing at their heels. But the shadows thickened, blocking their path with dark figures that whispered in a language of despair. With a final surge of adrenaline, Jenna and Max lunged toward the light, praying it would lead them to freedom. But the air crackled with tension, and she could feel it, a dark presence looming behind them, ready to engulf them. What terror awaited them on the other side? Would the light bring salvation or a more sinister fate? Jenna burst through the doorway, pulling Max tightly behind her. Bright light engulfed them, blinding at first, but it quickly faded into a sickly glow that illuminated yet another corridor. With its walls lined in cracked mirrors, their reflections distorted into ghastly figures' warped faces full of terror and pain that seemed to mock their every move. "Where are we now?" Max's voice was a tremor, quaking in the frail light. "I don't know," Jenna admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But we need to keep moving." The mirrors shimmered ominously, creating an unsettling symphony of movement. Each step amplified the sound of their breathing, a reminder that they were alive. Yet here, it felt like a curse. The reflections repeated their frantic moments, exaggerating expressions of horror. The whispers grew again, echoing from the mirrors in a haunting chorus that chilled Jenna's bones. "Join us. Be one of us," the disembodied voices pleaded. "We want tea," Jenna shouted, clenching her jaw to mask her rising fear. She tightened her grip on Max's hand, dragging him forward. As they navigated deeper into the corridor, a series of bodies began to materialize in the mirror's trapped souls, their eyes pleading for help, mouths silently screaming. Jenna's breath caught. They were not just reflections. They were prisoners of this place, caught in a never-ending loop of despair. "Mom, I want to go home," Max whimpered, his small frame trembling. "I know, sweetheart," she murmured, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Just keep your eyes on me." But then, a cold gust of wind spiraled through the corridor, extinguishing the feeble light. Panic surged anew, and Jenna felt herself slipping into the darkness. She fumbled for Max, heart pounding as the chill settled in like ice around them. "Mom," Max's voice broke through the blackness. "Stay close. I'm right here," she reassured him, though her own fear gnawed at her insides. The sinister whispers grew louder with the encroaching darkness, slipping through her resolve like shadows creeping into her mind. Suddenly, a flicker in the distance, another light. This one pulsed rhythmically, glowing vibrantly, beckoning them like a distant star. "This way, Max," she tugged gently, moving cautiously towards it. But as they approached, Jenna's heartbeat quickened. The walls started to vibrate, and the air thickened. The light flickered, and with it, Jenna saw the fleeting image of the girl from before, the one behind the locked door. Her face twisted in anguish, floating just out of reach. "Help me," she called, her voice rising through the chaos. "You have to help me. Mom, please, don't go," Max screamed, gripping her tightly. "I want tea. I can't leave you," Jenna yelled back, but with every word, the air felt like it was tearing her apart, an invisible force tugging her towards the light and the girl. "Stay here forever," the whispers hissed in unison, echoing her thoughts, tangled her resolve. In a moment of desperate clarity, Jenna turned away from the beckoning light, pulling Max with her. "We've got to find our way out. We can't trust it." With that, Jenna sprinted down the corridor, ignoring the laughter that surged around them, thick as fog, crawling along her skin. They moved past the mirrors, focusing on each step, the shrill cries of the trapped souls fading into the darkness behind them. But then, the ground beneath them began to tremble, the floorboards cracking and buckling, shifting like the haunted images reflected in the broken glass. They stumbled again, barely keeping their balance. "Mom," Max cried, and Jenna turned just in time to see a punch of darkness barreling toward them, a silhouette of malice and dread. "Run," she shouted, swinging around as a torrent of shadows rushed closer. Jenna's instincts screamed to escape, to find salvation, but the corridor warped around them, each step a struggle against the force that sought to pull them back. Ahead, the flickering light danced like a mirage, ever-changing. But what lay at the end? Would it be a savior or a new trap? As they hurtled forward, Jenna saw a door appear at the far end, its surface glowing softly. Hope surged, but was it false? What awaited them beyond that threshold? With every ounce of strength, they surged forward, the darkness howling behind. Will they find freedom, or has the house decided to keep them forever? The door stood before them, glowing like a beacon amid the encroaching shadows. Jenna felt hope and panic collide within her. With every racing heartbeat echoing in her ears, she tugged Max closer, desperately steering him toward the light. Just a little more, she urged, every instinct urging her forward, away from the devouring darkness as they dashed towards it. The shadows writhed and twisted like a storm, trying to ensnare their feet. Jenna's mind raced. Was this the end or another trap? Time seemed to stretch, each second dragging like molasses as the door loomed larger. Yet it felt so tantalizingly far. "Mom, it's getting darker," Max whimpered, eyes wide with terror. Jenna turned to him, the weight of the world resting on her shoulders. "I know, sweetheart, but we can't stop. Just keep moving." The fear in her voice electrified her legs, forcing her to run faster. Just as she reached for the handle, a chill swept through the air, freezing her hand. She shoved the door open, a gust of light spilling over them as shadows lunged from behind, the anguished cries of the trapped ringing in their ears. "Join us. Stay forever." Jenna propelled herself through the door, dragging Max with her into the blinding brilliance. It felt surreal, a sharp contrast to the terror they had just escaped. The room was stark and white, every wall gleaming as if from some dream. "What is this place?" she gasped, taking a moment to breathe, scanning for any sign of danger. Max stepped slowly into the bright expanse, apprehension dancing along with his small features. "Is it safe, Mom?" he asked softly, voice shaking. Jenna hesitated. "I think so," she murmured, hope creeping back for the first time. But her instincts still warned her. Nothing felt truly safe anymore. Then, she spotted something at the center of the room. A massive mirror, framed ornate and glimmering, held within it the reflections of an ethereal landscape filled with sunlit fields and laughter, a stark contrast to their poisoned past. As they approached, the voices of children echoed again. But this time they sounded jubilant, joyful. "Max, look," she said, pointing toward the mirror. "It's like a way out." He leaned closer, awe shining in his eyes. "Can we go there?" A smile threatened to break his worn expression. Maybe hope swelled in her chest like a warm embrace. But as she gazed into the mirrored scene, she felt the familiar chill creeping closer, like mist curling around her ankle. The joy of the children transformed again, their laughter slicing through the fragile tranquility. "Join us. Come play." They smiled wide, mouth stretching too far, eyes glimmering with a twisted eagerness. "No, it's a trap," Jenna screamed, pulling Max back, the warning heavy in her heart. "It's just like before." Shadows warped and twisted at the edge of her vision, whispering dark promises of companionship that felt like chains. Suddenly, Max lunged forward, entranced. "Mom, I want to go," he declared, reaching toward the glass that pulsed with a malignant hunger for him. "No," Jenna shouted, panic igniting every nerve. She dashed forward and seized Max's arm, yanking him back as tendrils of shadows clawed at them. "Let us get out," she said fervently. "We can't trust them." The urgency to escape fueled her, even as the mirror began to weep blackened tears, desperate voices combining into a thunderous roar, filling the air with demand. Max turned frightened eyes towards her, clenching her hand tightly. "What do we do?" "Find a way." They bounded toward the exit on the other end of the room. But as they turned to escape, the ground trembled violently. The mirror shattered, spewing shards of brilliance yet darkening the air, revealing ghastly faces creeping through, twisted and gnarled. "Don't stop," Jenna bellowed as they raced toward the door at the far end, shadows swirling around them, eager to consume. Bursting through, they tumbled out into a serene garden, the air suddenly sweet and fresh. Gone was the madness, replaced by colors bursting to life. Sunlight streamed down, dispelling the remnants of cold darkness. "Mom, we made." Max gasped, breathless. They both fell to the ground, panting with exertion, disbelief flooding through them. Jenna squeezed him tightly, tears spilling over. "We did it, Max. We're free." Yet even as she reveled in the moment, shadows slinked at the edges of the garden, whispers bubbling beneath the surface, a reminder that darkness was always close. But for the first time, Jenna felt the warmth of the sun, an invigorating promise of life and love breaking through their haunting past. "Let us go home, sweetheart. For real this time." As they turned to leave, Jenna's heart hammering with every step, she knew darkness was a lingering memory. The light had won today, but their bond was forged stronger than fear. And as they walked down the path, laughter sparkled behind them, a reminder that they had fought, and they had conquered. With each step away from the shadows, hope ignited anew. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.